let's see, what did we cover? Okay. So in the last class, guys, how many of you can hear me? Drop a message in the chat. Hello, JP Northkid. I can see your message. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen so we can just kick off. Continue from where we left off and discuss React routers alongside. Diving deep into how to also use effects, right? We mentioned that in the last class. Let me go ahead, share my screen, and probably start off with a very quick revision, right? Okay, okay. So just give me a minute so I can share my screen. Let's see. Okay, let's also open up this code base. Where is it? Right, I think it's right here. So I'll be sharing my screen now. Share my entire screen. Okay, share. All right. Okay, so let me know if you can see my screen clearly before I kick off. For those of you watching via YouTube, I think everyone is probably watching via YouTube. Let me know if you can see my screen so we can proceed. Okay. JP Northgate, Promise Zodak, um, Ola. Let me know in the chat if you can see my screen. Let me zoom in a bit. Right. So in the last class, I think we were able to use the use effect hook to fetch some blocks. I believe that is exactly what we did. So this is the block component. Let's dive into the block component to see, how we fetch, those blocks. So right here we have use effect. Okay, so we brought in use effect and we were able to fetch the blocks from JSON placeholder, right? And we're also able to set, errors or success message. I mean, if you have an error, I also mentioned how you use this particular config to ensure that use effect runs once, right? What I'm going to start off with today is to make you understand how you can actually use effect to check for for scenarios uh, where something is changed and you're trying to perform an action against what has changed, right? So similar to the way you watch variables, right? Similar to the way you watch variables, we're going to we're going to use an example. Let's see, we have a bunch of things here already. Maybe we can comment on some of them. Let's comment on some of these things so we only get to have the blog. And I mean, we can even take off the blog for now. So we're going to have like an empty space, sort of, right? We have the nav bar and we have the footer right here. So which means we'll probably have, let's say, name. I'm just going to say, this is attributed to a specific name. Okay. So right here, we actually have company name. We also have name. So name is Marvelous, which means we're expecting to see Marvelous by the time I run this. So let's say npm start. Okay. See. All right. Okay. So npm start. This is okay. So this is currently being refreshed, and you see we have name Marvelous. Okay. Let's zoom in on this as well. Let's take a look at what we have here. We're getting this name as the default, right? If I say Mac, we have name Mark. Okay, good. So at least we know how we're getting this. Let's just say John Doe. What we are going to do is, of course, have a function that can change this name, which we have also covered before, right? I'm sure you guys remember this. So we can say button on click, and we want to say set name, right? But this time around, we actually want to, pass a name by the time we set the name, correct? So we are simply going to call set name, and we can pass in a new name like Mark right here. So this is the point where we get to close the button and we say change name. Right. So if I save this, let's see what that looks like. So if I change this, you see we have Mark, right? Okay, marvelous. I save, I refresh this page. By default, we have John Doe. Click on change name, we have marvelous. So which means we're actually, able to change the name from here. Okay, we're able to change the name from here. But what we actually want to do is to also have use effects listening to that name change so that we can, run some kind of action when the name actually change. Okay, so I'm going to have use effects, code right here. Remember, guys, remember that we already did the import right here for use effects. So you see, we said import use effects from React. So that already exists in our code. We are simply going to, add a dependency to this use effect right now. This dependency is simply to say if name is changed, right? We have name right here. So we are tracking that name. If the name changes, we need to run what we have here. Let's start by simply saying alert. Um, the name variable was just changed. Okay, so it's going to be, this simple. Let's, okay, let's do that again. So if I change this, you see the name variable was just changed, right? Maybe we can just do a console.log. So we're simply watching and I'll say the name was changed. So we're simply watching so that trigger would come in if the name is changed. So first I refresh the page. We can go down to the console. Okay, let's clear this. If I click on this, you see the name was changed. I click on that again. Of course, nothing happens. It basically runs just once, right? Let's refresh. Okay, hold on a second. Let's refresh that. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so I have use effects. Okay, the name. Okay, okay. All right. Okay, so yeah, so what happens is, when we actually click on set name, right, which is what we have here, it basically changes that name, and we have, this that says name was changed. So the first instance we have was because, we are actually assigning a default name to this, which is, John Doe. I go back to the browser, I click on change name, you see we have the name was changed. I'm sure you guys can see this very well from your end. Let me also zoom in on the console. I hope that is visible. Okay. Sorry about the background if it's noisy on your end, but I hope this is easy for you to comprehend. Let's take that again. Now we already covered how to use effects to run, to perform a fetch when the page actually loads for the first time, right? So use effect is going to run when the page loads for the first time, which means it's still going to run, given the fact that we have a name and the name is John Doe, that is actually going to run when we load the page for the first time. But then what happens is it's also watching, for some changes. If the variable name, which is already, working with the use state, if this is altered, right, at any point in time, then that particular use effect hook would also be triggered, right? So sometimes you probably want to perform some changes and then make an API call, when that particular, thing happens. Of course, you can use a regular function, but this is just a way to add dependency to use effects. For those of you that would, find this handy when working on your code base, you can simply make use of the use effect function with a dependency check. Okay, hope that makes sense. We're going to actually get to dive into React router. I would keep today's class simple. I'll just show you how you can navigate through multiple pages. We're going to work on something different. I'm going to create a new project, right? So that you see how I get to set up the project, install React router, and of course create a sample, I would say profile or portfolio application with React, okay, and React router. Okay, so for now, I think we can just go back. Okay, maybe I can actually leave this here. I'll just go ahead and uncomment some of these guys here. Okay, let's save that. And we actually had we're displaying some of those blocks here. I'll just go ahead and display those blocks again, right? I think it's blogs. If I'm not making a mistake, oh, I think it's blog. Is that correct? Let's see, save. Okay, so it was blog, not blogs. All right. We're going to create a new application now, but I would love to check if I have any questions before uh, someone said the screen is not clear. It's possible that it's from your end. Let's take off some of these comments showing up here, and of course expand the screen as well. Okay, so maybe you can JP Novkid, you can check the quality from your end. All right, check the quality from your end. Let's go ahead and create a new React application here, and you know uh, include some routing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to navigate to the terminal. Right, this is our terminal. Let's go back one step. So I am going to say npx create React app. Let's call this portfolio websites. Okay, so the code editor screen is not clear, others are clear. Now that is very weird. I mean, the code editor screen is not clear, others are clear. If you're using your phone, maybe you want to zoom in because, I mean, if one is clear, the other should be as well. Except your screen is not visible or it's not legible well on your end, and that's a different thing to look at. All right. Okay. So my assumption is you can still see my screen now. If you still have any challenge, do well to let me know. Or you know what? Give me 3 minutes. Let me just switch my network, and let's see if that actually solves the problem for some of you. Okay. So give me 3 minutes to quickly do that. All right.
At the stage. Hello, guys. Can anyone hear me? So, if you can hear me, while we wait for Mr. Mav to get back, please go ahead and ahead, go to Discord, a message so that others can join this class and you don't miss out on the class. Now, for those of you who missed the attendance yesterday, please kindly watch out for the attendance today, because if you send me a message, I won't open up the attendance once it's closed. So thank you guys.
Apologies, guys. So this actually, I tried to switch my network, and all of a sudden, I think everything just froze, for a while. Sorry for that delay. Please confirm if you can hear me. Please confirm in the chat if you can hear me. Someone is still saying the screen is blurry. So I'm not very certain if it's from my end, but let's see how many of you are having the same issue on your end. Let me stop sharing and share again. Okay, so I'm sharing again. How many of you are having similar issue on your end? I'm sharing again. Let's confirm that, please. Um, yeah, I mean, if it's 480, I'm not very certain if that is from my end. Can you increase from your end? Try to zoom in. I don't know why. I don't know why you're getting. I think it's a network thing, by the way. And I can see just two or three people are complaining. How many of us are? How many of us can see my screen clearly? Because this is actually very visible from here. Let me also zoom in on this one. That will be better. Okay, much better. Okay, okay, okay. So yeah, we actually set up a new application. Unfortunately, this is taking longer. This is of course part of the network uh, thing we're talking about here. So taking longer to create a new application. But ideally, I think it's almost done. Let's see. I think that's almost done. Ideally, what I do at times, I can just duplicate, like the project folder itself, right? That directory. I can just duplicate it, remove a couple of things and, reuse the already created bits. For some of you that would also have a bit of network challenge, you can do this, right? Um, yeah. I mean, if you have a very stable network, this shouldn't take long at all, okay? So this is probably taking about 5 or 6 minutes just to set up a project, right? Which is not good. Okay, so this is not good. Let's see. Okay, so what I can do, let's go to that same location, 300 dev days React. Okay, so what I can do, just like I mentioned, is I can simply come in here, make sure I take off node modules if we have one. So I can duplicate this, right? And I can, call this my portfolio. Okay, now I have a new project, right? Yeah, this has finished installing by the way, so we can actually use that. But I can just go in here, take all the items I don't need and, use the ones that are, I mean, I think maybe that's what we can just do. Let's stop this. Let's stop this. Let's take off that project and let's work with the my portfolio project that we just created. Okay, so this is my portfolio project. I can simply open this up in VS Code, right, by dragging and dropping it in there. So um, let's put it on a new plain screen here so I can zoom in so that you guys can see this very well as well. Okay, so you see, I just have what components do I have? I have a couple of components here that I'm not using, so I can go ahead and delete them. So let's take off these components. All right. And yeah, so I have the app.js file. This is the base component. I can take off a couple of these components as well. Well, nav and footer, these are components that I probably would have left because I still need them, right? I still need them, but it's fine. Let's just go ahead and create everything from scratch again. So I'm going to take these two off. We don't need the form as well. Profile image, that's fine. We can keep that, right? But I want to also show you how to import that profile image. Okay, so let's see what we have here. So this is use states. Take this off. We no longer have that. Probably take some of these off as well. What are we looking at? So navbar, we don't have that. We don't have any of this. So let's just take everything off, and we have that base component. Let's just say p our base component. So this is empty, right? This is completely empty. Um, yeah, let's see. This is the base CSS file as well for the app.js file, right? And we do not have anything. Yeah, so let's run this. Let's run this. I'm going to go back to that terminal, and I can simply navigate to that portfolio project, okay? So let's do npm install, and I would say npm start, all right? Okay, probably we can run, let's just say npm install here, and I would have to start that project in here, okay? So let's open up our terminal, okay? So of course, you can simply click on view, okay, and click on terminal. I use the shortcut, but this works, right? So this also opens up that terminal. So ensure that npm install runs completely. Still taking our time, but let's go for it. All right. So what we're simply going to run here is npm start. Of course, you don't need to be concerned about either of this, right? So that is simply my, my terminal doing its thing. So let's clear npm start. Okay, so we're still having, the node modules, being installed. So we still have to wait for a while for this to complete. Okay, so that's almost done. Okay, so that's completely installed. Let's go ahead and run this in here with npm start. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. Okay, would you like to run the app on other ports? Yeah, because I actually have, I have the app running on for 3,000. I have another app running on for 3,000. I did not kill that app. So I'm going to run this on for 3,000. Okay, 3001. Okay, great. So this is currently loading that application. While that is, coming up, remember we said this is going to be a portfolio, website. So let's just create a couple of pages. So for example, we'll have the home page, right? So I'm going to create some components here. So this is home, right? And in here we can just have a div, have an H1 that says this is our home page. Let's just call it home page. All right, so let's copy this, and we're going to have about page. So let's just say about, copy, paste, and paste. Okay, so this is going to be our about page, and or our about components. You can call them components. Yeah. So we have a portfolio. So now we have three components here. So this is our portfolio page, components, paste right there. Paste. Okay, so this is quite, straightforward. Three different views at the end of the day: about, home, and portfolio. All right. So in the base page here, we are going to import, these items. So let's go ahead and import them. So I'm going to say import home from. So let's bring this from components home, right? Of course, you can include the JS. Okay, so let's duplicate this about. So we're importing those items, right? Portfolio, cost from portfolio. So now we have these three items, imported into our code, right? And we just want to make sure that we're able to render these items. Now, ideally, you can just, proceed to render this home, portfolio, right? And of course, about. Okay, so if you do this, you are simply going to get those three items: home, portfolio, and about, right? So here we can simply say maybe welcome to our website, welcome to my website, right? So let's just assume this is, my personal website. I'm simply going to say I have probably I have an hero section within the home, right? So I can simply, yeah, I can take this out. Let's go into the home component, and let's simply say, um, let's say welcome. Let's just put my name, Marvelous Solomon. Okay, so I'm also going to have my image, right? So I can simply say SRC. Um, yeah, let's import that image. So import avatar from. All right, so now we are going to go into assets, images, and avatar. All right, the PNG. I don't have that image right there, so of course you expect some error, right? If you check this, you're definitely going to get some error. We don't have avatar that PNG within the image folder right here. Okay, so let's get one image. So if I go, I would prefer to open this in a different screen so you don't see a lot of weird images. So let's check out people. Marvelous. Okay, so I didn't want you to see some of my teammates, pictures, but I can simply grab one, crazy looking item from here. So let's take this one. All right, so let's take this one. I think I have one picture that I call DP somewhere. Right, so I can take this profile image. That seems to make sense, of this guy. All right, so let's put that here, and okay. All right, so I'm going to call this avatar. That's quite big, but it's fine. Okay, so let's save this now. So we have, it says can't resolve avatar dot, I think that's because this is .jpg, but we are calling it PNG. So JPG, correct that. And of course, we're probably going to have that image fill the entire screen, which is not what we want, right? So let's have a class name here that calls this avatar. And we are going to call this, let's give this a class name of hero, right? So of course, we can proceed to import the CSS file for the homepage. So we can say css/home.css because it makes sense to actually have this, separated so you can, you don't have your code, littered everywhere. So let's take off some of these items that we are not using for now: navbar, form, footer, and blog. Take those off. We just have the home.css, so we have the hero style, right? And we can simply say display flex, right? Maybe justify content space between, okay? And yeah, this makes sense. So what else are we missing here? Flex, okay? Flex wrap when it needs to wrap. All right, so we can also say dot avatar, which is that's our image. So I can do a width of 300 px and a height of 300 px. Object fits, object fits. That's perfect. Okay, cover. So let's see. Let's see what that looks like for now. Okay, so this is definitely crazy. Okay, this is not looking good. Go back to the home and we can wrap this in a main. Okay, yeah. So if we wrap this in a main, then it makes sense that within this home, right? Or probably we have some base. So we say main.css, and here we can style main to give us a width of 80% or even 60%, margin 0 auto. So what this is going to do, and of course we can have a mobile view max width 1000 px main, give us a width of 90%, when we're on mobile, right? And of course, same thing, margin 0 auto, but not necessary because this would, do the job. Okay, so within our home, we can simply go ahead and import main.css to make sure we get that width that we have set. Great. And of course, if that is not enough for you, you can simply say border radius 50%. Okay, so we have this guy. So now we have the name. And by the way, this is just the hero section within, home, right? This is just one section we're working with. So in that hero section as well, I think it's safe if we still say align items center. So we can have that text sit in the center. Okay, yeah, just like this. Let's put a simple description. I am a professional. Okay, I don't know. Let's just say um, principal software engineer. Okay, at xyz.com. All right, so something as simple as that. Okay, so that is not good. We just have to make sure we wrap this properly with a div. So this works. So now we have, this hero section here. We have the about page, but we don't need the about page to show this way, right? Instead, we want a situation where, we can actually click on a button and the about page, shows up, right? In form of a view, right? Basically, everything is being rendered on one page, but yeah, we're going to use the router to make sure the rendering makes sense. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. So for now, let's quickly have a simple nav, right? Very simple nav that will just show the three pages, right? Homepage, about, and portfolio. Great. So let's do that. So I'm going to say we have a new. We can even style that in the main .css. So let's just go ahead and create some of those components here. I would say create a new folder, right? And I'm going to call this folder. I mean, it's not necessary to create a folder, but I wanted to have a way to create some items that I would call utilities. But of course, I can simply bring them here, navigation.js. I want them to be separated, okay? So navigation and footer.js, right? So just because I want them to be separate, I can simply, say I have a folder I call utility components. So let's just say utilities. That is the name of the folder. Nav and footer can sit inside that folder, right? just want to structure things properly. The utilities. Okay, so inside app.js, this is the part where I can, render navigation right here, navigation. Okay, and of course, footer. All right. So these items will be rendered via, routes. But for now, let's just go ahead and import those two components. So utility components. These are the components I need to import here. So navigation. Let's say import navigation from. Okay. So let's say components utilities, and I have nav. Okay. Bring in the footer as well. All right. So I have these utility components, right? I can simply make sure we have. So you see, I always use SFC. This is a stateless function component, so it just gives me that base setup here, right? So I can have footer, and I can simply create a div. This is the footer. Okay. Let's just have this in a wrapper like this. All right. So I can copy this into navigation. Just change this to navigation, navigation. So this is the point where we need to actually create our nav. So let's say class nav, yeah, nav is fine. Okay. And I mean, you can simply choose to use a nav item. So I believe we have a nav item that you can choose to use like this without a class name, right? So this actually, would work. Let's also wrap this in a main so that yeah, we'll have it properly, structured in terms of the width as well. Okay. So here we're going to have three items, three buttons, right? Or links. So let's say we have a link. The first one is our homepage. Second one is what's it called? What's the second one? Yeah, the second one is let's see. Second one is the about, yeah, and the third one is the portfolio. Okay. So these are the pages we have for now. href. This is home. So just the base. href here about, and same thing here. href. So let's call this portfolio. Correct. Portfolio. Okay. So now these are the three pages we have, and we are able to put those links here. If we check here, you see we have those three, links, but of course not very good. So we simply have to come into maybe we can just create you can say import uh, what do we do here? Okay, come back one step, two steps, assets, CSS, navigation.css. Okay. Now, remember, you can write your styles in here, but it's actually, much cleaner if you do it outside. And that is why I always, you know, use this as examples, right, for you guys. So I can simply say nav display, flex wrap if it needs to wrap, gap. So let's have a 50 px gap. Okay. So now that would give me something that looks like this. And I can simply say maybe all um, yeah, so let's just do height 100 px. So just to have that height there, and I can also say align item center so that that can actually sit in between, right? And of course, if you want to have a way to make it visible, so you can say background color. Let's just first start with black, but I'm not going to keep black obviously, so I just want to um, change that color. So you see we have the navigation. It doesn't really make much sense, but yeah, it's I think that that is something we can work with. Let's just put a margin bottom of 2 EM there so we can have some space. Okay, so now we have a very simple nav, right? Not responsive, obviously, but yeah, I think it works for now. So we have the home, about, and portfolio. So if I click on home, if I click on about, you see nothing actually happens for now because we have not set up React Router. Okay, so we are going to set up React Router, and by default, we're going to be sitting on the home section right there. Okay, how do we set up React Router? Let's create a different section here in our terminal. What we are going to do is to install the React Router itself, right? So we have to say npm install React. So let's see, hold on a second. So React Router DOM. Okay, npm install React Router DOM. This is exactly how you install the React Router. And by the way, you can also check out the website. I have it open down here. So this is the React Router web page. I'll share this in the link in the chat. Sorry, I'll share the link in the chat. So you guys can actually, copy that or, save it somewhere, open it up on the browser, and you can take your time to read through. We have some sample tutorials. We have some examples. There is much, there's a lot of things you can actually do with, React Router. But I'm just going to focus on, the basics, right? So you see, this is just an example application where you can click on different names here and you simply have, the contact rendered here based on that particular, contact ID, right? These are examples. You can click on examples so you can see more, more, yeah, more applications, right? So click on this link. It takes you to the example that was built. I believe this is on GitHub, yeah, but you can also run this on Stack, please. So there's a link on the GitHub repo. By the time you open this up, yeah, there's a link to the examples on Stack, please. Okay. Let me stop that for now so that we can simply check some other things out. Click on routers and you see, you can read up this documentation so you understand how to use the router, right? This is the base item we're going to use in today's session, which is browser router. So let's, yeah, I think I have to probably refresh this page. Okay, so this is the browser router, and this is what we're going to be using. Now that we have installed this, let's just go ahead and import browser router. Okay, we have to go back to, let's see, let's close a couple of things we have here, right? So we have to go back to the app.js, right? This is where we need to import this browser router. And we're just going to say, let's import this as router, okay? When you import this as router, everything you have within this, return object needs to be wrapped around, needs to be wrapped with the router, okay? Just like this. Great. So now we have the router here, wrap the whole thing around that. Next, we also need to import routes and routes. Okay, so routes is, what you use to actually wrap each route. Okay, so now we're simply going to say we have routes just like this. Okay, and inside routes, we're going to have routes. Okay, so what we are going to do inside this route is to then make sure that we are able to, let's see, I think I'm making a mistake here. Oh yeah, that's correct. I'm trying to remember the exact, oh yeah, parts. I think that is correct. Parts, yeah, correct. So this is me looking at the example on this page as well. So you need that base part. So I say we have the base part, and you can then bring in the elements you want to, render. So elements, I believe the elements should appear this way. Let's see, not 100% sure. So now we're basically doing some verification. So of course, we should have the navigation sitting on top of the yeah, sitting outside of the route, as well as the footer. Then these items are basically what we are going to render, in the routes. Okay, so we have three items. This should be slash about, correct? This is supposed to be slash home. Yeah, so that's slash home. And what do we have here? This is a portfolio. Okay, so this should also be portfolio. This should be about. Right now, I think it's high time we test this to see if it actually works. So if I save this now, we have the nav and the footer sitting outside of the route or route. I mean, whatever way you choose to call it. Let's go back into our application. So now there's nothing in the home. If I click on this, okay, so that does nothing. About actually gives us the about page. Portfolio gives us the portfolio page. That is because this guy does not go to slash home, right? So let's take that off and keep it in the base. Okay, so about, let's see, portfolio and home takes us right here. Okay, so let me take this one more time. Someone is asking, one thing with this blurry screen is when we are watching the video, we'll be finding it hard to grasp those parts where your screen was blurry. Oh, okay, okay. Okay, let me try to zoom in or probably change. Now I'm surprised at why you guys are getting that blurry screen from your end. I still think it's the network. Would you prefer if we, yeah, I don't think that would actually help a lot, but let's try that. Maybe if I change the theme, I think most people always complain about working with lighting for some weird reasons. Does this work? I want to just cover, what I have done again. I'm just going to explain, but I want to know, does the lighting work? Is it better? Natasha, is this much better? Natasha, who else is Ola? Is this better? Most people are not very comfortable with lighting. If you're using 720, I don't know why this is not clear on your end. This is better. Okay. All right, Obasi. Okay, so let me quickly take this again. So what we did here was we created different components, right? So these are the components we created. We call those components about, home, and portfolio, right? We're just trying to mimic what a portfolio website would look like. Okay. About, home, and portfolio. And then we also have utility components. I call them utility components because they are simply utilities that they are not part of the main things we're working on, but they need to be there, they need to be present, right? The navigation, the footer, right? Maybe buttons and some other things. If you're trying to build custom components, I usually throw them in there, but your naming convention can be different. Just make sure it makes sense, right, to the next developer that will be looking at that. Yeah, so I also have some styling, for the components, primarily for the home component that we actually styled. And then we have the main.css, which can be called on every component. It will just contain the main styling, right? Whatever those main styling would be in your own context. Okay. Yeah, so we just have the main item here, but what I mean by whatever those styling would be, you can be styling your paragraph here for everything. You can be styling your a tag, right? You can be styling, the body. Okay. So I can say background color, for example, is Azure. Let's use Azure. Okay. So if I work with this, it means by the time I come back to the home page here, I'm going to get that background color because it's applied, everywhere basically. But you get the point. So I'm using that as the main CSS file. So I can simply apply that main CSS file into app.css or app.js. Now, what I mean is I can come to the app.css and say, import. I can't even, let's see, URL. How does that work here? Can I remember at import? Yes, that is it. Okay. So I can simply go to assets, CSS main. Okay. So I can simply import that style. And yeah, if I have other things I'm trying to, fix here. So for example, the A tags, I can say all on set if I'm not very comfortable, with the colorings and all that. You see, it goes off, right? And then I can say maybe when I hover on the A tag, for example, hey over, I can simply say text decoration underline, right? So that gives me that underlining when I hover, okay? And of course, I can also choose to add the cursor pointer, right? I get this cursor item when I hover. So the point is, I'm just showing you how I structure this thing so it will be easier for you or for me in this context, right? To work with React or any framework. I prefer to make sure I have a standard way to, style and work with templates and work with JavaScript files, in my projects. Okay. Yeah, so now that I have the components and the styling, what I'm doing is in the app.js, this is where I then import the browser router, the routes and the routes. Okay. So the routes is just going to be a wrapper for all my routes. And then the route itself is what I use to point at different, files or components that I have created and I want to use them as the items that will be presented when I navigate to a specific route. Okay, and the browser router is the base, wrapper. So just to ensure that the router works across whatever we find inside this router. Okay, so yeah, to ensure that it works on components that are bounded by this particular tag, which we call the router. Okay, and of course it must not be router; it can be anything, right? It can be as Mavs router. Okay, that is just an alias, right? So I can call this Mavs router, but of course this is not making sense, right? So I prefer to just call it router. That's what I prefer to do at times. If this is not what you want to do, you can also choose to just go with the name itself, right? So that is also fine. Okay, this works perfectly as well. So next, I make sure that the navigation, is displayed outside. The navigation and the footer is displayed out because whatever I'm rendering, I want to make sure I can still see the nav and the footer, right? So that is why I have to put them outside of these routes. Okay, and now within the routes, I'm just saying, if the path is on the base, give me the home component. If the path is on about, give me the about component. If the part is on portfolio, give me the portfolio component, right? I can also include a new one to say if the part is on, let's say if the part is on projects, right? So give me the projects component. I don't have that component here, but I can create that. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure we import the projects component from components, projects, JS. I don't have that yet, so I can copy this, come into components, new file, project for JS. Okay, SFC, just to that. So projects, okay, div, this is a class name of projects. Okay, so I don't really have any projects. Let's just say H1, uh, my projects, and P, these are my recent projects. Okay, let's just point at. Oh, I was thinking that would appear here. That is supposed to appear. Oh, yeah, good. So now I just saved that, and I don't have that link for projects here, so I can also proceed to include that in navigation. So utilities, navigation, and within navigation, I can just say, let's go back to navigation. I can simply copy this projects and projects. Okay, so now we're able to include the project, link, right? So if I click on project, this takes us to my projects. These are my recent projects. Does this make sense? Ask your questions, right? Ask your questions. I don't want us to spend more than an hour on this call, but go ahead and ask your questions. I'm trying to see that we focus on, the simple parts. Now there are some advanced routing patterns, and in our next class we're going to cover that. But this is what you need to know to start, including routing in React. Okay, to start working with React router, to start, routing in React basically. Um, yeah, so go ahead, ask your questions. Let's try not to take too much of this. If you need more clarity, you can watch this video again. Hopefully, it will be clear. But if it's not, feel free to ask your questions on the Discord server, right? And remember, we have the hackathon coming up, starting on the 19th, which is just 2 days from now, right? On Discord. So if you're not aware of the hackathon, I think you should probably visit farm25.boldclick.com, right? Probably share the link in the chat here as well. And of course, just make sure you're on the Discord server, make sure you're active because, we have a prize for the winners of the hackathon, right? Not so much, but we're giving out 200,000 naira to those who participate and win the hackathon, okay? So yeah, for those of you that are not informed, I hope that, information got to you here. You can also share with your friends. I mean, it's open to anyone. Yeah, if you have any questions, I'm still looking at the chat. Ask your questions. If not, you can also ask your questions on Discord or in the WhatsApp group. Okay. So, what if the style for the utility component? Okay. What if the style for the utility components that we will use many times you have to change for different screen size? Yeah, I mean that's where media queries come in, right? So you should always make sure that you are, working with your media queries on each component styling. Okay. I hope that makes sense. And I also advise people when you are actually working with component styles, it makes sense that at least to some extent you learn how to include prefix right to your style. So for example, I can say home hero, right? So that by the time I get to the project or the portfolio styling, I can say portfolio hero, right? I always include those prefixes so that I don't have to override another style. Okay, especially with the styles with important tags to it. So obviously, hope that makes sense. So you should make sure you include um, your media queries, right? Obviously, Ikechukwu. Okay. Do we have any other question, guys? Any other question? It's 9 o'clock. All right. Okay. So I think that is all. This media query style can be done for only the utility component. No, no, no. It can be done. I mean, wait, let me take a look at that again. What if the style for the utility components hmm, okay, that will be reused would have to change for different screen sizes. Yeah, so I mean if you style your utility components like the navigation, for example, right, as you so for example, let's assume we have more items here. Okay, I'm just going to do a bit of styling for the nav, right? So I'll say at media screen, right? Let's do a max width of maybe 1,000 pixels. Okay, that's 100. Let's just do 1,000, and I'm simply going to say nav background color. Let's change that to yellow. So that will work across board. Let's see. I'm making a mistake here. Yes, max width. Okay. So let's save that. So you see, it changes, comes to yellow, right? So all you have to do is style. I mean, just make sure you have your media query, and that should work perfectly. Okay. I hope that answers your question. If you think it doesn't answer your question, drop your question on WhatsApp or Discord. Okay. And yeah, I'll be able to take your question. We're going to have a session on Discord tomorrow, right? Pending when we start the hackathon. That session is just to give you some hints about what the hackathon is all about, right? So for those of you that are opportune to be in the server, for those of you that are on this call, invite others. We'll just be on Discord by 8 p.m. Just to have a conversation, right? So I'm going to be on the stage, and you can ask the questions. We can have conversations on what it means to actually learn to build, learn to code, learn to code fast, learn to even learn fast. Okay, and of course, everybody cannot be learning at the same speed, but learn to also understand why you have a community, why you can always, ask questions, right? Ask me questions, learn to tag me and ask for questions, right? Yeah, in the group, it's better that way so that when I answer your question, others can also learn from it. Okay, so do have a wonderful evening. If you're not on the Top Universe server, feel free to visit the server. The link is displayed right there on the screen, right? So what we have also covered this evening will be found on GitHub, right? So you can simply check the link, the repository link. I'm sure most of you have it. I'm just going to include that. So added the portfolio project. Okay, so git push. So you can simply check the link. If you don't have the link, I will also share it in the chat before we close this session. So let me go ahead and yeah, go ahead and share it in the chat. I think some of you have the link, so please just share that link on the WhatsApp group and maybe the Discord server, right? So let's say git remote show origin. So that will give us. Oh yeah, I think I have it right here already. Okay, copy. Okay, so guys, do have a wonderful evening. And I think your attendance form was also shared with you, so do well to fill that attendance form. It was shared quite late, but just simply pick it up and put in your details, right? Also remember to drop your feedback as well, so we can improve our processes and our approach to teaching. Okay, if we have to. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night. Bye. I think there's a complaint there. The attendance link is not accepting responses. Please, moderators, check that out. Have a wonderful evening.